Thank you. Thank you all. I'm really excited. It's my first TED Talk ever. I'm Hen Mazzig. Can you hear me? Okay. I'm Hen Mazzig. I'm 24 years old. I'm from Israel. I was born and raised in Israel, and I lived there all my life. And today I want to talk to you about the power of hope and the power of good, and how doing good deeds and how maintaining hope can actually change a nation. How my country, Israel, a nation that is based upon hope, that went through so much, but this thing, that maintaining this hope, is what keeps us going. I'll apologize for my English. It's not my first language. Hebrew and Arabic are my first languages. This is what we spoke at home. And English is my third language, and I picked it up from American TV shows. This is why it's so bad. Especially from Saturday Night Live, and I guess this is why it's actually so bad. Today I work in StandWithUs. StandWithUs is an organization that is doing education and advocacy for Israel. We're trying to educate people about what's going on in the Middle East. It's really hard to understand what's going on from the news. So I'm trying to educate people and tell them what's happened, what is going on there. Fighting hate speech with good speech. And just this time, in the last years, since I took this job, I had a chance to reflect on my life. And I saw this line, that chain of events that are all based upon hope, that is really going parallel with the story of Israel, with the line that connects the events that happened to us as a nation, that is all relays on hope. So this is me and my grandmother. Both of my parents were born and raised in Israel, but my grandparents came to Israel in the early 50s. This is me when I was 13 years old, when I was young and cute. And then everything changed. My grandparents came to Israel in the early 50s. My grandparents from my father's side came to Israel from Tunisia in North Africa. In North Africa, in Tunisia, there was a population of 105,000 Jewish people that lived there for ages. We're talking about culture, we're talking about heritage, we're talking about language that was all destroyed when the Tunisian government has expelled them and forced them out of the country. They came to Israel, the only place that will give them a refuge. So while they are being forced out from Tunisia, my grandparents from my mother's side are being forced out from Iraq. In Iraq, there was a population of 150,000 Jewish people, 150,000 people that were forced out. Their land was taken away, life had been lost, their property was stolen, and they came to Israel with nothing. They had to start from scratch. Growing up, I don't remember that my grandmother ever said something about refugees or that they were refugees. They didn't even use those words. It was important for them to talk about what happened to them. It was important to talk about the stories that they had from Iraq and from Tunisia and all the awful things that happened. But they were not resentful. They always talked about a better future. They always maintained this hope for a better future for their children, for my parents, and for myself. So I grew up in Israel, and when I was 12 years old, it was the heights of the second Intifada. Intifada in Arabic is violently uprising or shaking up. And in this time, there was many terrorist attacks in Israel almost every day. Almost every day, somewhere else in Israel, someone was killed in a terror attack, in grocery stores, in shopping malls, in buses. It was really, really dangerous to get out of your house. And I was 12 years old and I wanted to go to an ice cream shop that is 2 blocks from my house. And as I'm walking to this ice cream shop, I was a chubby kid and I loved to have my ice cream almost every day. And as I'm walking, again, 12 years old, I remember hearing this huge explosion. I felt like everything around me was shaking. And I kept on walking to the same store that I know that I'm going to almost every day. And the same place was going on fire. There was smoke everywhere. There was people running and screaming, and I remember people crying. I remember ambulances. And I'm not going to describe what I saw when I got closer, because it's things that no 12-year-old kid should see. No one should see those things. But I remember looking down on the floor and seeing a pink sock in the size of a baby feet that was covered with blood. And in this terror attack, a grandmother and her 1-year-old grandchild were killed. And whenever I'm sharing this story, I'm getting goosebumps because this 1-year-old girl didn't do anything bad. She didn't do anything good in her life. She didn't have a chance to do anything. And she was brutally killed with her grandmother when a suicide bomber walked inside the ice cream shop and exploded himself. And I went back home. I told my mom what happened. I didn't went through any therapy. I didn't went through any consultation. My mom was so happy that I was alive. That was the important thing. There's no need for anything else. As long as you're alive, we move on. And I grew up, and when you turn 18 in Israel, you need to join the military. And this experience that I had is something that every Israeli has. Every Israeli that you'll ask can tell you how he lost someone he loves in a terror attack, how he saw a terror attack, how he survived a terror attack. It was part of our identity as Israelis. This is what we went through. And so I turned 18, and I need to join the military. The military is mandatory in Israel. Men serve for 3 years, women serve for 2 years. You can also do social work for your community, volunteering in a hospital or something as such. And I had to choose a unit to join to. And the memories of what happened to me, the memories of this terror attack, was still in my mind. I couldn't erase them. And I chose to join the COGAT unit. The COGAT unit is the humanitarian unit of the Israeli Defense Force. It's the unit that takes care of the Palestinian civilians. As we understand, there's many Palestinians that have nothing to do with the conflict, that they want to live their life. And the job of my unit is to help them with building infrastructure, with building roads, with building clinics, hospitals, schools, in any way we can. We have a branch for economic cooperation. We have a branch for security cooperation. And that's the unit that I chose to join to. And I chose to join it because I really wanted to know more about their culture. I wanted to know more about those people. I couldn't believe that there's so much hate that you can't fight with love. And that's what I did for 5 years. I actually extended my service for another 2 years. And I served in the West Bank. I served in Hebron, in Jerusalem, and in Ramallah. I saved the life of thousands of Palestinians. And every time I did something like that, I can't tell you how amazing it feels. I want to share with you a story that happened when I served in Hebron. And one day I'm getting a phone call from my United Nations. I was the liaison officer for international organizations, and I worked with many UN agencies and international organizations that worked in the West Bank. There's actually the highest number of international organizations in the world that are working in the West Bank because they can do their work, and we are helping them doing their work. That was my job. And one day I'm getting a phone call from my liaison officer for the United Nations. He's panicking, and he's telling me that 2 Palestinian kids, one is 13 and the other one is 14, were playing in Hebron, in the Judea desert, and they picked up an unexploded device that was left for one of the Israeli jeeps to drive over. And this time, the 2 Palestinian kids picked it up and they played with it, and it exploded in their hands. And he's shocked, and he's telling me, Hen, we need someone to come here. Now, this device was left for one of the Israeli jeeps to drive over. And not surprisingly, one of the jeeps was nearby, and he stopped in the place. There was medics, Israeli soldiers that were medics that came out of the jeep. They saved the life of the 2 kids in the field. They took them to a nearby military base, to my base actually, where they were treated by an Israeli doctor that his job was to take care of the soldiers that are in the base, but he stopped everything he was doing to take care of these 2 kids because he knew that their life are at risk. 20 minutes after that, an helicopter came from Israel, picked the 2 Palestinian kids, and took them into Israel, where they were treated in an Israeli hospital. Their life was saved. I went to meet with the family a few days after the incident. I went to visit them in the hospital, and there was no resentment in their eyes. It was amazing to look at them and to talk to them, and to see that those people understand that we are human on the other side, that we want to live our life with them, that we want to live in peace with them. And this story is one of many of how we are working together, of how we are trying to work for a better future. Israel is helping the Syrian people on the border that comes to the border and saving their life. I think they spend over $35 million in the last few years since the Syrian civil war started to save the life of people that should be considered their enemies. This is something that we have in our nation. It's a feeling of hope. We can't be resentful. My grandparents could be very resentful about the fact that they were refugees. They could have demanded justice. They could have said, no, we will not move on until we get this justice that we deserve, because they deserve justice. Everything was taken from them. But they chose to move on. They chose to celebrate life. And in a small country that is surrounded by enemies, that all call to its destruction, maybe one or two are willing to live in peace with them. But 57 other countries are not really happy with this country's existence. This country is based on hope. It's a nation that is based on hope. And through the story of my life, that is not very unique. Many Israelis share the same stories, I can tell you that. It's something in our collective as a nation to keep on inspiring for a better future. We have no other way. And I hope that as much as Israel inspired me, I can inspire you to never give up this most powerful thing, the power of good and hope. Thank you so much.